Welcome back to another N-Cut movie review. Today we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Did this movie make a splash? Let's find out in this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
The plot of this film follows a typical DC film that we're used to seeing now. I guess we're just used to the plot being weak, being sort of 4 or 5 plot lines shoved into a movie where it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's trying to rush to get to the climactic scene at the end where it's a big fight scene between, the typical bad guy and it's Aquaman being the main protagonist who has some sort of affliction in life where, in this one he's the king and he's trying to juggle being a new dad and a king and he's not sure if he wants to be a land dweller or a sea dweller and the troubles and the things that come with that. Now, the plot of this film felt very much like the first movie. That's what we want to say straight off the bat. Like, if you watch the first film straight after you watch the second one, it's essentially the same. It's the same plot. Some scenes are even similar in the way that certain characters get injured or near-death experiences, and then in the second film, which we just saw, is the exact same scene, which happens all over again. Even more to the point where his brother in the first film, who was his enemy, is now one of the main characters and almost outshone Jason Momoa in this film, we found. I mean, his screen time, we found, was a lot more enjoyable, a lot more funny. His character had a lot more layers in this, as opposed to Jason Momoa's character, who was essentially Fast and Furious 10 character, just morphed into Aquaman. I mean, not to be offensive to Jason Momoa, but he's kind of getting this one mode of acting typecast type where he's just is himself essentially on screen and there's no actual acting going on. He's a one-trick pony. It's almost The Rock in this movie.
He was just it was very noticeable about how
generic.
Generic the wardrobe was.
And generic, how generic his look is.
Yeah, it's either, are you playing Arthur Curry or are you playing Jason Momoa? Yes. I don't know if these actors are now just playing themselves in movies. Are we telling stories anymore or not? Because we're going away from this. All these movies, all the DC movies especially, are starting to run away from the actual lore of each character, and they're now going into just the actor. And they do the same thing with Jason Statham. They're doing the same thing with The Flash. It's all of it is the same thing. They need to change up, please. He
literally was in the exact same costume from scenes in Fast X in this film as well.
Yeah.
It looked like he went from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. He had Fast X filming, and then he just walked straight over the lot, across the road to the next lot, which was Aquaman, and went, all right, let's get going, and started filming that film.
Yeah. Are you lacking in the wardrobe department? Because I actually have some on Fast X block just behind me. I'll go there 5 minutes. I'll be changed right back in there. Just tailing off what Geordie's saying with the whole movie of the shitty writing and the shitty character development through Arthur. Another thing you see that's really bad is the CGI. That the first interaction with you and the screen of CGI is so mid. You see these massive glaciers that look as bad as a real pixelated screen.
We want to preface just quickly before we go into about how bad the CGI in this film is, because it was bad, especially in some parts. It is very hard, we imagine, to make a film underwater look fluid, look beautiful, look like it's a natural motion, because honestly, what do we look like when we're floating around underwater, swimming around, fighting and all that sort of stuff? So we want to preface and say we understand that would be very hard to do, but for a movie with a $250 million budget, whack.
Yeah, do better. Please. The first one had a very similar budget and looked, in my opinion, way better than the second one. It's almost like they gave up. And I know we've said this in a lot of reviews lately, that the CGI is getting worse and worse. They need to just put most of the budget towards CGI these days. Stop paying the goddamn cast so much money and just take a bit of a pay cut and move it towards the CGI budget, because it's irritating to watch this. And they did this in The Flash. If you watch The Flash, it was 100% the worst CGI you've ever seen. This tails it secondly, just underneath The Flash of how bad it was. But, as Geordie said, you have to give it a bit of leeway just because it's underwater, and some of the fight scenes would be super hard to film. Even pure CGI would be still super hard to film and make it look anywhere near realistic.
It's the same as simple as making hair underwater floating on your head look natural when you're sitting there talking. Hair doesn't float around like it does in this movie in real life. I mean, when you're underwater and you've got long hair, it just sits there.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Amber Heard, her hair's red, so it looks horrible against the CGI screen. And shout out Amber Heard, she was she was literally there for what? Amber Heard was on there for maybe 5 minutes total?
My dog got bit on the face by a bee. They did a really good job of cleanly cutting her out of this film as well. I mean, we know, if you know anything about Amber Heard or anything about her personal life, that she has had run-ins in with Johnny Depp recently in the media and all that sort of stuff, and has pretty much been blackballed from Hollywood, like they all do when they go through some sort of a crisis like that. And they did a really good job of blocking her out and making it look fluid, because, I mean, she's married to the main character and she's not in the film. So it kind of makes no sense that she's not there. But following on from what Josh was saying there, another aspect of the film that didn't really work or doesn't really work, which is a reoccurring theme in these DC films, is they feel rushed. They feel like they're trying to rush 4 or 5 movies worth of lore into the one film. Whereas we saw especially phases 1 through 4 in Marvel, is that you don't have to rush anything. You can let these characters build and let the world around them build, and then we can fall in love with the character or fall in love with certain attributes of the character, and then it gives us a reason to keep wanting to come back. That's what made phase 1 through 4 of Marvel so special. Whereas DC just rushes. It just rushes, or it tries to put in 5 or 6 characters that we all know and love on the one screen at the one time, and then they think that that's going to be the formula to make a great film, where it is not. I mean, the most successful Marvel films were Iron Man 1, 2, 3. And guess what? It was only pretty much Iron Man in all of them, except for Natasha Romanoff in the first 3 Iron Man films. There's no real other characters in them except for special credit scenes. So that's what these Aquaman and DC films sort of feel like they're missing. I mean, you knew this was going to be the case when they went straight to Justice League. They didn't even hash out any lore, any characters. They just went bang straight to Justice League, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and I understand where Geordie's coming from, because they do have a lot of outside issues to the film that does stuff all these type of films up, such as the global warming aspect. You do understand that some of the hoops and hurdles that these film studios that have to jump through just to accommodate these actors, and then you also have legal troubles with Amber Heard, so there's no good publicity. Like, you do understand what companies go through, why they do lose money, but it's so evident why these companies lose money, and it's because they are not putting enough time into the backstory, not putting enough money into the CGI, not doing any of these things. They need to focus on the lore, focus on the original characters, and build them up from the ground. That's how you build a franchise and a goddamn empire. And
especially a franchise that is so hashed out already. I mean, not on screen, but in comic books and with such a huge fan base. I mean, DC is enormous. From the cartoons to the video games to the comic books, they have fans everywhere, almost more than Marvel did, and almost more than Marvel do, yet they just keep getting this wrong, and it seems like, I mean, hopefully they can learn from what they've done wrong so many times over and over and over again in these DC films that have just failed. I mean, yeah, the first Batman one was pretty good with Ben Affleck, Batman vs Superman, but from then on, there hasn't really been anything good.
No, I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League for 4.5 hours, and like you and I said with Killers of the Flower Moon, no one's going to sit there for 4 hours, regardless if it's a superhero movie or if it's a well-written Martin Scorsese movie, right? So just to divert a little bit, let's just talk about the movie a bit more. Now, we are going to address some continuity errors that we saw, or some just plot points that didn't make any sense. Now, the plot points that didn't make sense, if they are attacking a Hydra cannon and trying to get over the Atlantic Wall,
which in the first film is clearly described as being impenetrable and has shown many defenses on the wall.
Not just one gun, not just one hydro gun. There is multiple there. How is this one ship able to sustain 35 shots from these hydro cannons and have a random shield that apparently can outlast all of that, and then take one cannon down with some sound and then just climb over the wall like nothing happened and no other gun's going to shoot? That is piss poor writing and a shit attention to detail.
And there's clearly a scene in the first film where it shows a wide shot of the wall that Josh was talking about, and there is about 30 cannons on there that Amber Heard's character clearly just says, these cannons are impenetrable, this wall is impenetrable. And then in this film, it clearly shows a scene where he uses a special array that they've got, and there's one cannon.
And it goes down and they just sail over that wall like nothing's ever happened. That doesn't make any sense. And another thing that I also noticed about this was how many movie thefts I've seen on screen with this film. What they've taken absolutely landscape out of Avatar. They've taken landscape out of Lord of the Rings. And they've taken even to the robots, like the Sentinels from the Matrix. All of these are just like magical movie moments put all into this film. I don't want to reference to just spoil too much of the film, but all of these are in the film. Like, what I'm referencing is all in the film, and it's just a clear rip-off.
Funny thing to follow up from what we've said is that we actually didn't mind the movie. I know this whole time we've spent just shitting on the movie and saying how bad it was. It actually wasn't that bad. We are just picking things apart that we found in the movie that weren't good. Because I guess we just want DC to be good. We want to see a film or a universe where we can actually get on board with and get along with. I mean, the hardest part with DC is you go in and watch these movies and you go, okay, this was somewhat decent, but they're never going to go anywhere with it because it's not going to make any money, or people are going to talk shit about it, and then it's just going to go into writer's hell because they're going to try and think, oh, how can we become like Marvel? And then it just becomes nothing.
But they don't need to. They do not need to be Marvel. Pave your own way. You actually arguably have way better villains, way better storylines, and way better heroes in your universe.
Yes.
And they can use that to their advantage. They don't have to be funny Marvel like Momoa's trying to be. But that's just Momoa. But they don't have to do that. Don't follow in anyone's footsteps. Pave your own way. You have the money, you have the franchise, you have the fans, and you have the following, and you have the actors right there as well.
Aquaman's hard because of all the Justice League superheroes, he probably is the most boring, and he probably is the least hashed out in the fact that he has not many movies, not many TV shows. Even in the cartoons, he's a bit like, gets made fun of because, all he can do is talk to fish.
You talk to fish?
Yeah, all he can do is talk to fish. So Aquaman's hard, but we just want DC to be good. We want DC, especially because Marvel's just plummeting so far down, and this is the window that DC has right now to come in and take the reins and become what they should have become with such great characters like Superman, Batman, the Joker. The list goes on and on and on, and they just haven't been able to hit the point. So this is why we enjoyed the film. As much as you could enjoy the film, it's a good popcorn film. It's a perfect popcorn film, actually. It's a great film that you would just turn on and just watch, and you could get some enjoyment out of it because it's got cool scenes and this and that. But we're picking apart what a $300 million film should look like. Exactly. It should be clean and concise CGI. It shouldn't look like a green screen. It shouldn't look like a grey background, grey screen. Momoa should blend in with the background. He shouldn't look like he's in a suit that's 5 sizes too small for him, and he looks like he can't breathe, and when he runs, he can't move his arms. These are things that DC's not doing right, and they're clearly not learning because they just don't care. But this was the last phase of this iteration, so hopefully, James Gunn can fix all this shit up. So.
Yeah, and let's hope he does, because like Jody said, just absolute source material on source material they have ready to write and ready to give us. But fix your fucking movies, please. My rating for this film would be a 50%. It's, like Jordy said, amazing popcorn movie to chuck in at the background and just let it play. And you can definitely get everything that's going on within 4.5 seconds of looking at the screen every time you come in. Every half an hour you come in, 4.5 seconds, you understand exactly what the storyline is. Before, I also want to give a shout out to Patrick Wilson. Man got into shape. He was looking shred city. Man had a touch of water and just became Chris Hemsworth in the first Thor at 100 kilo. He was amazing. Good on him. And he was the best a character in that and best actor in this film for sure. He's just a great actor anyways, but he had awesome, kind of fleshed out lore. His humor was also unmatched in this film. Shout out to Patrick Wilson. He did a very, very good job in this film. I appreciate everything they wrote about him, and that was the only good character in this film.
My rating for this film will be about a 50% as well. I think the chemistry between Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa kept this film afloat. It pretty much kept you involved, kept you engaged in the film. Their brotherly back and forth, their bromance. It was investive enough to get you invested in the film, but everything else outside of that was pretty boring, pretty basic. It's good to see, hopefully, that this will be the end, of the lackluster DC films, and James Gunn can now have the keys to the car and just drive this thing into something amazing and turn it into what Marvel is as well, or what Marvel used to be. Good on Jason Momoa. It was great having him as Aquaman, but time for something fresh, time for something new.
Anyway, guys, this has been another NCut movie review. Don't forget to drop the like and the sub. And if you really do like it, share it as well. Anyway, we're out.
Peace.
And cut.